So, how exactly do you get from a food poisoning outbreak to a future without CEOs? Well, the connection is this incredible piece of code that's quietly starting a revolution. And it all begins with, of all things, a simple bag of mangoes. Okay, so let's set the scene. Our story kicks off with a massive food safety crisis. You might remember when there was a huge E. coli outbreak in romaine lettuce. The big problem was investigators couldn't figure out where it was coming from fast enough. It led to these enormous recalls, tons of wasted food, and a real loss of trust. It was a serious wake-up call for the entire food industry. And this quote from Frank Yanis, who was right in the middle of this mess at Walmart, just nails it. We call it a supply chain, but that's not right. It's not a straight line. It's this messy, tangled web of farmers, packers, distributors, and stores. So when one thing goes wrong, trying to trace it back to the source is an absolute nightmare. So to see just how bad their own system was, the team at Walmart ran a little experiment. They took one single package of sliced mangoes off a shelf and said, okay, find the farm this came from. And the process was just painfully slow. We're talking phone calls, digging through emails, tracking down paper records. It took them almost 7 full days to get an answer. 7 days. In a food safety crisis, a week feels like an eternity. So Walmart decided they needed a radical new approach. They partnered with IBM to build a new system using blockchain technology. Then they ran the exact same mango test again. And this time, the result was 2.2 seconds. Let that sink in. Not 7 days, not 7 hours, 2.2 seconds. That's the kind of leap that looks less like technology and more like magic. So the big question is, how in the world did they do that? Well, the secret ingredient, the engine behind that incredible speed, is something called a smart contract. This is the tech that makes these hyper-efficient, super transparent systems possible. So let's break down what one actually is. At its heart, a smart contract is really just a computer program that lives on a blockchain. The best way to think about it is like a digital vending machine. You walk up, you put your money in, that's the condition, and the machine automatically gives you your snack. That's the result. There's no cashier, no middleman. The rules of the deal are literally baked right into the code itself. And the logic behind it is actually super simple. It all boils down to an if-then command. So, for example, if a shipment of mangoes gets scanned at the warehouse, then the smart contract automatically releases the payment to the farmer. Or if the temperature sensors show the cargo stayed cool during shipping, then the next step in the supply chain is approved. It's all just logic, enforced by code, which gets rid of the need for anyone to manually check and approve things. And when you put them side by side like this, the difference is just night and day, isn't it? Traditional contracts are slow. They depend on intermediaries like lawyers and banks, and all the information is locked away where you can't see it. Smart contracts are the exact opposite. They're instantaneous, totally automated, and because they live on a shared blockchain, they're transparent to everyone who's part of the deal. And maybe most important of all, they are incredibly secure. Once a deal is recorded, it's encrypted and it cannot be changed. Ever. So, as you can probably guess, this is way bigger than just a clever way to track fruit. We're talking about a foundational technology with absolutely massive economic potential. And the market is really just starting to catch on. Just look at these numbers. The global market for smart contracts is already worth over $2.6 billion this year. But look at the projection. It's expected to nearly triple to almost $7.5 billion by 2029. That's a growth rate of over 23% year after year. That's not just growth, that's an absolute explosion. And this isn't just happening in one little corner of the economy. This chart shows you where the adoption is happening. Sure, banking and finance are leading the charge, which makes total sense. But look at the rest: logistics, retail, healthcare, even real estate. Basically, any industry that relies on contracts and transactions is getting a complete makeover. But here's where things get really wild. The impact goes way beyond just making old ways of doing business more efficient. Smart contracts are actually making it possible to create entirely new ways of organizing ourselves, and that's leading to some pretty radical ideas. Just think about that question for a second. Seriously, what if a company could run purely on code? A place where all the rules and all the decisions are just executed automatically by smart contracts, and the whole thing is governed by its members. It sounds like something straight out of science fiction, right? Well, it's happening right now. This new kind of company is called a DAO. It stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. And instead of that classic top-down pyramid with a CEO at the top, a DAO runs on rules that are baked directly into its smart contracts. Everything from how it spends its money to voting on new projects is handled transparently and automatically on the blockchain by the community itself. Of course, that brings up a huge question. How do you make decisions if there's no boss? Well, this slide shows a couple of the ways they're figuring it out. The most common method is token-based voting. Simple enough. One token, one vote. The problem is it can turn into a system where the richest members hold all the power. Another option is a multi-sig, where a small, trusted group has to sign off on decisions together. It's way faster, but, it's also less decentralized. It's this constant trade-off between speed and sticking to that core principle. Okay, so let's bring this down from these big, abstract ideas about organizations to something much more personal and creative. Let's talk about music. Smart contracts are offering a real solution to a problem that artists have been struggling with for decades: how to get paid fairly and on time. Just imagine an artist embedding a smart contract right into their song file. That little piece of code would contain all the rules. It might say for every single stream, 50% of the royalty goes to the singer, 30% goes to the producer, and 20% goes to the songwriter. And those payments happen automatically, instantly. It just cuts out all the middlemen, all the confusing accounting from record labels, and ensures creators get what they're owed right away. So, wow. We've gone all the way from tracking mangoes to reimagining the music industry to building entirely new kinds of companies. When you really take a step back and look at the whole picture, you realize this isn't just about a new piece of software. It's a fundamental change in how we make agreements, how we exchange value, and maybe even how we trust each other. I absolutely love this quote. It draws this amazing parallel between what's happening now and the late 18th century, when people were trying to imagine a world without kings for the first time. The idea of it is thrilling, right? But the real work, the actual challenge, is figuring out how to build this new thing with all its messy trade-offs and new problems when it's never been done before. So whether it's making sure our food is safe or creating organizations that have no leader, smart contracts are becoming the fundamental building blocks of a new, decentralized world. The technology is here, and as we've seen, it is growing like crazy. So the final question really isn't if this is going to change things. The question is, what kind of future are we all going to choose to build with it?